What is happening, everyone? You are back once again with another episode of the Republic of Gaming podcast. This is episode 11, and again, another special one to bring to you. We have another special guest that we're going to introduce in a minute. But first of all, I'm going to introduce the usual crew. We've got Una Ming. How are you doing, Una?
Hello, how's it going?
Good. We have Platinum Jack.
Yo, everybody.
We have I'll give it to you, Seamus, the bearded maestro. Seamus.
It's not as impressive this week. Come on now. It's not really bearded maestro. I'm more like the kind of, I'm half clean shaven at this stage.
Yeah, I think it's because you're shaving it up a little bit. It is a little bit sellout, but we'll give it to you because Kevin isn't here at the moment. Kevin is on community, but our very special guest tonight, introducing to the microphone and the camera, thank God we got that working, is Anton Cullen. Ansonix is his alias, his music alias. He is a music producer that does retro themed music. How are you doing, Anton?
I'm doing great, yeah. Really happy to be here.
Delighted to have you on. So just to kind of get the ball rolling, as we always do, we are a gaming podcast. So we just ask everyone what games they've been playing for the last maybe week or two. So you are a special guest, Anton. What have you been playing, if you have been playing anything?
Yeah, just recently there, I've started chilling out a bit more. Work's quieted down, thankfully. So I've been playing Sonic Mania and also some of the Streets of Rage remakes. Don't know if you've ever played those. They're a lot of fun.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So
big fans of actually both those on this show. Seamus, you were playing Sonic Mania recently, weren't you?
Yeah, I finished all that recently. The last boss in that game is ridiculous, but it's a good. I love it how it feels new. It still gives you that retro old, like reminiscent feel.
Yeah, I love games that do that. Yeah.
Anton,
they take you back.
You play mostly retro, or do you dip your feet in a little bit of modern, or how does your kind of gaming?
Yeah, I haven't bought any of the new consoles. I will get around to it soon. But and there's lots of great looking games. I'm like saying, oh wow, I want to get my hands on that. I've just been slow on the uptake with that, you know.
That's totally understandable.
What work and stuff, but at the same time, I'm really enjoying the indie games and the retro style games. And
deadly.
I'm proud. I bet Streets of Rage 3 and Streets of Rage remake on Mania difficulty. Woo!
Oh, nice. Yeah, we always big up all the retro, the kind of modern retro scene in the indie scene at the moment, and we're huge fans of all that kind of stuff on the show. So we'll give it to Jack. What have you been playing? I'm sure you've been trying to platinum something on one of the consoles.
I was playing Akiba Strip there last week, but I haven't touched anything in the past couple of days. So that was the last thing I've played. Needless to say, it's a strange game.
What is it? I never even heard of it.
Yeah, neither have I.
Akiba Strip. Basically, the whole premise is you're a weeb, as some people would call it, and you get invited for a job interview. You get experimented on, then you get changed up again, and then you have to go out and strip people to kill them.
What console is this?
What?
PS4 and PS Vita.
Is it an easy platinum? Is that what you're playing?
Nope. It's an incredibly difficult one.
I have never heard of that. Is it you don't know who develops it or when it was released, or?
Oh, Jesus, I think it was released in 2015, but I can't remember off the top of my head who developed it.
Give us that name one more time.
Akiba's Strip. Or Akiba's Strip, I should say.
Yeah,
But you can kind of read it as strip. It's basically written to read as strip.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm.
Una Ming, what have you been playing?
yeah. Sorry, I don't know how to follow on from something like that. I have since I recently bought my new laptop. Thank you, Fano, for spotting it on adverts. I actually can play games on the computer now, which is really cool. So I finished Tacoma today, which is a very
nice.
short game. Same people who did Gone Home. It was grand.
Yeah.
It was only like 2 hours long, so that's fine. And then I delved straight into Oxenfree, which is really, really good. It came out in 2016. It's like a supernatural mystery graphic kind of game. But it's freaking me out a bit too, because I have my headphones in, and it's just like every so often, because it has this supernatural scary vibe, I'm just like, just randomly jump off. But I'm really enjoying it so far. And the graphics, how it looks, is really, really nice.
Do you hook it up to a TV or do you just play it off the monitor? Or how do you?
Straight into the computer. I actually had an issue with Tacoma because I got motion sickness when I was using my mouse, so I had to use a controller instead, which
Okay.
grand. But yeah, I got really sick after it because I was spinning around in space.
Seamus, what have you been playing?
A little bit of everything. Same as yourself, a whole lot of Dead Cells. That's exactly what you were going to say, so I don't even go there. This close to finishing it. So close. Anyway.
With its many bosses.
Don't go there. Then I delved back into playing Diablo 2, and there's a reason behind it. I don't know if anyone else has played the game. I played
it at 8-bit, actually. There was a PC running Diablo 2 at 8-bit.
Yeah. I just want to find the hidden cow level.
Priorities.
That's it. I just want to go there and be like, I've done it again. I'll never play it again. That's what I mean. I love the Diablo games, though. I've been playing a bit of everything. The Dead Cells. Well, it's Fortnite.
Any more Dark
and a bit of Dead by Daylight and stuff like that.
Nice. The game that I am playing and can't kind of stop playing is, Una mentioned it last week on the community, and that's Subnautica. It's coming out on, I believe, PS4, and Xbox are getting a release of the game. So I grabbed it on PC just to do a first look and show people what the game is about. And it scares the crap out of me, first and foremost. You dive under the water and there's these things bigger than a truck looking at you, wanting to kill you. The premise of the game is you crash on an alien planet, and the planet is just surrounded by water. And it reminds me of, anyone seen the movie, is it Interstellar? Yeah, it's Interstellar, where they crash land on the planet, and it's just literally an ocean planet. And it's very similar to that. The feeling it gave me. The graphics are gorgeous on the PC as well. And I've played about maybe 4 or 5 runs, and each run feels different. And like a good survival game, you learn something new every time you play it. And it's just after capturing my imagination. I'm hit or miss with survival games like that, but this one has enough originality that I enjoy it. Anyone else play Subnautica?
No, but I always find, though, I don't know if it's the same with you, it might be, but anything to do with underwater just really stresses me out.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. Like I love fishing. It's no secret that I'm a big fisherman, but having something underneath me that's massive, like a great white shark or something like that, it scares the living daylights out of me. And in this game, you gotta dive under, and it's aliens that are under there, and you don't know what you're going to bump into. You could be going through an underwater cave system, and it's dark as hell. The only thing you have to light yourself up is a flare, and the next minute something's in front of you trying to kill you. It's really good. It's really original. And I would tell anyone when it comes out on PS4 or Xbox to check it out. It'll come out and it'll be cheap, so it'll be definitely worth having a go. So we're going to bring it to Ansonix. Anton, we're going to give you the mic for a couple of minutes. We're going to be asking you a few questions. And the first one we want to just ask is a simple one, is tell us about yourself, who you are, and how did you get started in the music industry and doing what you do?
Okay. I'll try and give you a really short version because I could babble on for ages. I got into music. I mean, I've always been musical. Like, I remember clearly when I was 6 and my brother was 5, we wrote about 20 songs, put them on a cassette player and stuff, So I've always had music in me. But it was really my dad who encouraged me a lot when I was just about to turn 16. I took up keyboard lessons then. And I just loved it. So about a year later, my music teacher got me involved with a covers band. And so that was my first taste of making some kind of income or some kind of work through music. From there, then it's just been so varied. I've been the rock and roll scene, the singer-songwriter scene, the blues scene. But I started with classical. The first thing I did really seriously was release a classical piano, like all original music, called Attic Melodies, because I recorded it and produced it in my attic.
Nice.
So hence the name. And got to perform that at the National Concert Hall. So that was my first opportunity, my first time kind of, really going all out and taking it seriously. But as I mentioned already, since then it's been very varied a lot. I've been in the music scene for so long, and then I've also been in gospel music and church music, and even teaching choirs and things like that, which has been so much fun. And I've come full circle from my childhood memories of video games, and I've ended up back there, but with the dance music influences as well, the electronic dance music vibes going on too.
So you're talking about influences there. Who are your biggest influences? And I mean everything from classical to EDM or whatever genre.
I mean, no matter how many times I answer the question, I name different people because it's so hard. It's so hard to say.
I'm kind of the same as well.
Yeah. Because I'm influenced. Like I might probably name some people, and then when we're done with this, I'll go, why did I say them? I should have mentioned them. They were a bigger influence. It's always the way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because classical is there, Bach and Beethoven and Chopin were big music influences. So even in my dance music, a lot of my kind of chord progressions and things are kind of classical, you know.
Definitely.
And then I also got into rock bands. I mean, I suppose one that I was obsessed with for a while was Muse, because again they use a lot of those kind of patterns and kind of almost their music sometimes sounds like video game music. Some of the patterns and stuff going on. So again, I just love that vibe, that theatrical. That he brought the classical, the rock, the retro into it. You know, so absolutely, I still follow them and love their music. So they'd be a huge influence too. It's funny, I haven't mentioned electronic music yet, even though that's what I make. And a lot of the electronic music influences were from video games, really. You know.
Right.
Pumping soundtracks, energetic soundtracks really caught my attention when I was growing up, you know. Most notably Streets of Rage 1 and Streets of Rage 2. It's funny, I already mentioned I'm playing it. I'm going to seem like a mega fan. I'm playing the remakes, and here I am.
Believe it or not, we were doing a live show at 8-Bit, and you started banging out a couple of Streets of Rage tracks, and it was like we all started like bobbing the head when you were doing it while we were doing the show live. So yeah, that was unbelievable, and a great gig as well.
That's great. Oh, thanks a million. Yeah. So I have a ton of influences. Video games were a big influence, just in a passive way, because it was always there while I was growing up playing the games, and so that was a big influence, of course. But you know, there are a lot of electronic dance music artists I would have listened to too. I suppose I would have liked Robert Miles back in the day too, kind of early trance piano influences, you know, because that's where I was coming from too with the piano, you know. So he would have been a big one. I won't list any more because I could go on and on as they come to my mind, but you know, you get the idea. It's a varied background of influence there, you know.
Una, you look like you want to jump in there.
Oh no, it's just because he mentioned Muse, and Muse are my favorite band. And I was like, no, because I it's interesting that you said Muse as an influence, just because I'm immediately, when you're thinking of the kind of what I love about them anyway, and you probably have taken the influences, that all their albums are very different.
Very.
And especially the piano in their album. Oh my God, sorry, Matt Bellamy's just piano pieces like in Space Dementia, and it's just so good.
Sure.
So, yeah. So I can totally relate to your
Yeah,
mutual Muse love going on.
Excellent.
Here.
Yeah, because I love playing piano. I mean, I play it differently with the electronic music. I still play keys, but they're smaller keyboards. But no, I love playing the piano, and I love the fact he introduces the classical into his rock set. It's the live performances they do are incredible. I agree.
Yeah. Do you prefer the actual? Because I found this a bit tricky. Because I play the piano myself. Do you prefer the keyboard keys or the actual proper heavy, nice keys of a piano? I suppose.
Yeah, well, you've said the nice heavy keys, so clearly I know what you like best. No, to be honest with you, I prefer the piano, or at least weighted keys at the very least. I prefer it. I prefer playing a piano. And with the electronic set, I have a keyboard. It's more touch sensitive, but as time goes on, I'll keep investing and reinvesting in my equipment and hopefully get some nice stuff. Just for the live set, the electronic set, it's early days in terms of upgrading that and adding to that. So I have plans to get bigger keyboards for the electronic set too. Looking forward to that, because I have some musical ideas as well that I can't do with a small keyboard, but I can do with the larger one. So I'm really excited about that too.
I said it's going to be very cool.
I'm just going to look here. Yeah, so the world that we live in now, the abundance of music is just it's crazy. It spans from every genre to mixed genres. How do you make your music kind of stand out? And I know the fact that you do attach yourself to this niche kind of music style, but how do you personally say, well, this is the style that I want to do, and this is how I'm going to make myself as an artist be unique in this world?
Okay, that's a tricky one because like I definitely think it's good to know who your audience are, but not to shape your music based on who you want your audience to be, obviously, but just to be true to yourself and do the music that you want to hear, even if you're not sure where it fits in. I think that's the better route to go, because then you'll end up sounding unique rather than if you're trying to fit a certain category or please a certain audience, you know. That can be tricky at first, you know, because it's only recently I found my audience, for example. I was trying, how do you even categorize this? And I'm still experimenting, and it will keep, you know, developing and changing too. But just being true to myself, and then hopefully people say it sounds like nothing else I've heard and stuff like that. And that's, you know, that I just, you know, that's kind of those kind of comments please me the most when they say it's unique or they can't pinpoint it and stuff like that, you know. So yeah.
We talked as well before the show a little bit about original tracks and remixes. Do you remix a track? Do you put you know, a lot of different like a lot of style of you into that track, or do you try and keep to the original, say, structure of that tune?
Sure, yeah. I might do a bit of both. I'm a bit different in the sense that because I you know, I come from a performance background, that, you know, pretty much everything that's on my that you hear recorded, not all of it, but most of it, I perform live, or I performed into my DAW rather than programming, even though I do both a bit. So it's like I tend to call them covers rather than remixes, because I recreate them rather than take samples. So I try and find similar sound fonts and things like that, and I recreate some of the instruments, and then obviously put my 8-bit, or if it's already 8-bit, my electronic dance music stamp on it. So that's the way I go about that, you know.
So anyone that's out there is kind of puzzled what a DAW, digital audio workstation, it's basically the program that you use to make music or play live. Can I ask you what program you use?
Okay, it's an interesting one. Although I use a few for my latest EP, for the sake of making performance so simple, I managed to do it all on my iPad. Yeah. So some of the programs I use would be SID Tracker 64 for some of the Commodore sounds. I use Core Gadget because they have some inbuilt emulators from arcade machines by Bandai Namco, and it's an official one, so it's the sounds are identical. Obviously there's some added effects and things, but I love it. So I've used that a lot with music, and it lets you draw the sound, the wave shapes and stuff like that, and really experiment. So I'm able to get pretty much any sound I want using that. I do hope that eventually on the portable devices that some more some Sega and some Nintendo emulators become available, because that would be amazing to add to the portable music side of things, you know. But I'm still growing it. I use Ableton a little bit, and I use Cubase a little bit too.
Yeah, Ableton is probably the one that I use the most. I started with Reason and then moved on to Ableton. It just suited the fact that I was doing electronic music, and it kind of just suited my style. And I love the kind of interface of Ableton as well. For a live setup, I watched you at 8-bit, and you had your keyboard, and is it the iPad you have as well, and you're kind of running it through the iPad, or how did you work the kind of live situation at 8-bit?
Yeah, it was it's just an experiment I've been the last few months to see. I mean, it's a bit risky experiment, mind you, but to see if I can run the whole thing just using my iPad without introducing the laptop, you know, just to make it portable. And the less devices means less can go wrong, you know. So or hopefully anyway. So I managed to run it all directly within the programs that I would program the music into and record the music into, just by leaving some channels blank and just switching to them on my my controllers, switching to the instruments I needed my controllers at the right moments, but while running it through the DAW, the DAW, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what I experimented with, and it worked. No, so far I've done a few gigs now, and I've done a few live recordings with this setup, and so far there hasn't been a single glitch or hiccup or stall or delay or anything. So I'm going to keep
Apple
going
is
with
pretty
it.
solid.
That's one thing. Yeah, I mean, you know, I know you pay for them, but they are reliable at the end of the day.
Yeah, as far as a live setup, I always, when I was DJing, I always used Apple. I wouldn't use a laptop because it can overheat, and you know, things do go wrong with Windows. But Seamus, do you want to jump in with a question?
So just like on your own, like what's not so much in your plan, like would you? I'm trying to think like of a way of wording it. The way the indie game scene is now at the moment, where it's kind of bringing that retro style back to games.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that benefits you personally as a composer and stuff, that you could get jobs composing for these games, or would you find the market specifically in that genre very competitive?
Okay, a bit of both. I think a bit of both, because it is extremely competitive, because just, you know, having experienced it a lot, like I've been around a while and I'm experienced. So what I find that a lot of the indie developers start with small with small budgets, so they tend to get people just out of college and stuff like that. So it is kind of hard in that regard. You know, and not that I don't get work with it, I do definitely, but it's early days for me with the video games, but I do think that it also benefits me, obviously, if people have heard my music, made some good contacts at the 8-Bit conference, even from posting the videos. I've got some game developers got in contact with me, you know, so it's, you know, definitely just the more I put myself out there, then, you know, the more people will know I exist. That's a pretty obvious statement, but, you know, I just got to keep putting myself out there. But I do think that having the 8-Bit influence is helpful regarding the indie games. But there is a lot of competition, especially with younger people who might not necessarily even care if they're paid or anything. They're saying, oh, I get to be in a game.
Yeah.
So the developers see as well, they're both talented, but this one will do it for free. So
yeah, that is a problem in the music scene, definitely.
Yeah. And, you know, and I do collaborate, though, you know, which means that not everyone who works with me has to outright pay me. I do work out deals or trades, or to be a team, you know, so there are ways around it. But I suppose just even getting that message across, you know, is the challenge, too. Just knowing that, look, if you want to work with me, let me know, and I'll be able to work out something. So that we can all work together, you know. So but thankfully the last few weeks now, I've gotten quite a few offers of both work and collaborations. So I'm really excited about that, you know. Really excited.
And like with that, like if you're getting offers and stuff like that, do these people send you like videos like regarding gameplay and stuff, and like the lore of these games, so you can think about what you're going to write to it, or do you send them something along the lines of this might work with that? And that's
a bit of both. Yeah, a bit of both. It depends. I mean, there doesn't seem to be a set way of doing it at all, you know. Every game developer I chat to has a completely different way. One, even when they were interested, wanted me to make a 60-second sample for their demo, just to see if they definitely want to work with me. Stuff like that, you know what I mean? And so everyone has their own way. And even one wanted to compare it to 6 others and then decide which composer they're going to go with, you know. So it's... You know, and then others are just outright saying, I love your music, I think it will work with the game I'm doing. You know, so everyone's been different who's approached me. It doesn't seem to be a set pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking there about actually making a track for a video game, but I want to ask you, because I obviously have my way of doing it. Fano, like, he writes music as well. He has his way of doing it. But what way do you go about creating a track? Do you prefer to do melody first, put down a beat? When you sit down in the studio, what do you do? What's the first thing you go for?
Okay, it varies depending on what kind of track I'm creating. You know, if I'm doing electronic dance music, which at the moment that's what I'm releasing as Ansonix, I often get the idea in my head, either a scene or a mood or a picture or a story or something in my head. And so it always starts in my head, imagining the whole scene. But of course with electronic music, it helps to put down a basic beat and then experiment over that, try and get out what's in my head over the beat. Now, if it's something like soundtracks, which I've done a good bit, especially in the past, like, you know, for film and stuff, background music, then that's different. I go straight to the piano and I just improvise out what I'm imagining and thinking and can record that right away. You know, so it depends on what I'm trying to achieve. But for rock and dance music, normally it starts in my head and I put the beat down first and layer on top of that until I get out the idea here in my head.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, that's the way I do it as well. It's kind of, it
Cool,
depends really what mood you're in, what you want to do in the studio. That's the great thing about music, is you can approach it in any way. You can write a melody or you can just write a drum beat, and you know, it's different every time. That's what's amazing about it. Jack, do you want to jump in with a question?
There's one I'm wondering. When you were saying earlier about doing covers and the like, I can't remember if I asked you this at 8-Bit or not, but what makes you decide on what song you want to cover? Is it kind of nostalgia based, or is it kind of, do you think it'll work well somewhere?
Okay. I tend to do covers, like sometimes I've started getting into the covers for the sake of the live gigs, if I'm being honest. I was doing mostly original. I started getting into actually putting together the covers for the sake of live gigs because they've been going down well. But I found I have a lot of fun doing them. So now I'm on kind of a roll and I'm making lots of them now. I'm like saying, I should have done this sooner, you know? Yeah. But, you know, the problem, it's actually a problem. I have about 50 tracks in my head that I want to do. And it's a matter of just picking one at a time and trying to pace them as well and put them out there gradually and stuff like that. But at least I have a lot of material from my live sets now. But yeah, I definitely... yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah,
I wonder, as a creator, obviously it's very difficult. How do you determine when a track is done? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness, never. Yeah. You know, even when I finish a track, I look back and I see what I could have changed or tweaked to make it better. You just have to make up your mind and decide it's done. And basically, the more often you create, the better you get. Anyway, so that the quality of each track improves over time anyway, so that they do sound more, you know, well polished and rounded and finished, you know. But the best thing is to just finish them, not spend too long on a track if possible, because it just you know, most people can relate, but you never feel like it's finished. You never feel like it's finished. There's always something you can add. Yeah,
I've often heard people say that the minute you release it to the world, it's not yours anymore. So you can forget about trying to improve it. I mean, George Lucas tried to do it with Star Wars, and he had no right.
Yeah. Well,
but you know, like, it's the world's now. It's not yours anymore, and I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah. Although I can do remix my own tracks,
like George Lucas did.
You know? You know, in the dance music scene, a lot of them can release 3, 4, 5 versions of a track. You know,
but definitely, yeah.
So that's one benefit I have being in the scene I'm in.
Definitely. You also you can have other artists do remixes of your stuff as well. Yeah, no, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
Seamus, you want to jump in?
Yeah, just to kind of, when it comes to games and stuff, like, obviously the sound you're looking for now is kind of in the retro scene. But when it comes to like different games and different genres of games, say like RPGs and stuff, and they all have to have like a specific kind of soundtrack.
Sure.
How do you come up with like something, say for an RPG where it's all kind of, RPGs tend to more text-based and it sounds more melodic and it's more drawn out in comparison to like playing Streets of Rage where it's like an electro dance track and stuff like that and everything's really fast. When you're thinking about writing pieces for this, like, do you prefer to have this big long melodic thing where it's all really like nice and sound and it's really full, or do you like just having this quick beat that just kind of goes in your head and you're kind of saying it over and over?
With my current music, is that what you mean?
No, like overall, you're like, if you were to offer the job tomorrow to do a beat 'em up and earn, then at the same time you were to do an RPG and you had to pick one or the other.
Okay. Well, as you know, because I have a varied background with classical and stuff like that, you know, even now I still make instrumental music. I'm just not releasing it because I'm one person. You can't do everything at the same time. But I'm always I'm creating instrumental music and I'm creating dance music. I'm creating blues and rock music, instrumental things. So I'm always making music. And you said if you had to make a decision, what was that part of the question?
Like, if you were given the option to do, say, Streets of Rage or to do like Final Fantasy 3? If you were that person like to sit down and go for these two jobs at the same time, would you go down the more classical route and stick to what you actually learned at the beginning and do that, or would you actually just say, I prefer this like electro dance thing now. This is what's working for me now. I can bang this out in a week kind of thing.
Okay, well, as a composer, I'll take the one that seems the most interesting, the one I'm most passionate about. I'd ask a lot of questions, and I do when I meet a game developer. Sometimes it takes them by surprise, you know. but I like to know if it's something I really want to work on, and if it sounds like it's something that I can get behind and I'm passionate about, then I will, you know, regardless of if the soundtrack's going to be electronic or instrumental or rock or whatever, you know, because I've done a bit of everything because I've been in each of those scenes and I've composed in each of those areas. You know, as an artist, as Ansonix, I'll always have the 8-bit influence, even though that will evolve too. But as a composer for work, I love variety. Yeah.
What do you do when you're in a musical rut and it's just stuck there and you know it's there, but you just cannot force it out?
Oh yeah.
Drink.
I do two things. I either work on something completely unrelated and different, just for the sake of being creative. That can often work for me. And then if I come back to my thing, a day or two later, if I have that kind of time, then, you know, I tend to go in with a clearer mind, you know. Sometimes when you force things, it doesn't happen. But I think, like, for example, 2 nights ago, I was trying to work on a new dance track idea I had in my head, but I couldn't get it out. But at the same time, a really kind of uplifting strings melody came to my head. So I went to the piano and played for an hour, just improvising on this melody and recorded it. So, you know, but I got to be creative, you know what I mean? I was creative. So, you know, you sometimes you can't force it. You know, your mood has to be right, you know, and my mood was for that. So I went and did that. And then I come back to the other thing and my head's clear. The bonus is I have another track already complete and I'm returning with a fresh mind to the one I was trying to force before, you know.
Yeah, which is brilliant. And then after it's kind of almost, I suppose, to that done stage, do you get someone to criticize it or look over it before you decide to release it? Or how does it work for you?
Yeah, sometimes I ask for critique, but I try not to do too much because I find that often the critique is contradictory because a lot of it is down to people's personal tastes and preferences, you know? Like, for example, one big thing I get with it is regarding my beats. I like a good heavy kick, a good heavy beat, because the idea is I don't adjust to sound like video game music. I want people to be able to dance to it, you know. So I really emphasize that. But you know, half of the people I would have sent off in the early stages for critique would say the beat's too heavy. You got to cut that in half. And then the ones who love a beat saying you could even turn that up a bit more, you know. And but it was split down the middle, just with preference, you know. What the kind of advice I prefer to get is regarding mixing and just does everything sound right? Is there anything? Because sometimes a friend with a good ear will say that lead sounds a little bit harsh. It needs to be, maybe if it was a bit more rounded, it could, you know, it would blend better. That's the kind of feedback that I go for rather than creative kind of feedback. If you get me.
Oh,
that'll actually lead into a question that I wanted to ask you. Do you master your own tracks? Because I know it's recommended not to master your own stuff because obviously you have that love, but do you master your own stuff?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. For this EP, I chose not to. I did just for the sake of learning and experimenting. But I sent it off to someone else and also showed him the versions I did. But you know, he did it better. You know.
So do you find with the new EP, do you find that they're coming back and you're listening to them with new ears? You're like, wow, I should have got these mastered by somebody else all along, or is it a case that you feel like they've maybe dampened them a little bit, that you don't hear what you hear, what you think you should be hearing, and stuff like that? Is there a little bit of back and forth like that?
I suppose so. Yeah. Like, let me say something. I get some of my stuff mastered, and then other tracks, especially singles and covers, I just master myself. You know.
Yeah.
But when I want it to be a release that will be played on radio and stuff like that, like my current EP, I thought it was important to get a fresh set of ears. You know.
Definitely.
You know, and even the guy who mastered it says he does electronic music too. And another friend of his masters his, you know.
Yeah.
It just a fresh set of ears helps because sometimes it can get you know, I forget the term, but it's ear fatigue or hearing fatigue when you're working on projects for weeks or months and you're just not able to hear
You
the
become deaf to your
problems and
own
issues.
sound.
Yeah.
You also
While
have that
someone with
connection.
fresh
I think
ears.
you're working on this
Yeah.
track for the last month,
Yeah.
and now you've got to go and bring it to a stage where it has to play on radio. And I always personally thought that it was better getting it sent away and someone to master it. I think
Yeah.
a lot of, you know yourself, a lot of the work is done with the mixing process. The mastering is
Yes.
basically just that little bit of polish on top.
That's right.
How do you find mixing? Do you do it yourself, all yourself? Do you? I know you said you
Yeah.
send your tracks maybe off to someone. Is that how
Yeah.
you get your criticism?
Yeah, I tend to, again, mixing is also, like, obviously it can be good or bad at mixing, but a lot of it is also, again, down to opinion and objective as well.
Yeah.
Kind of like music, because in my mind, might want a really heavy bass, but to someone else, it might sound like that's too much in the forefront. But
Yeah.
that's personally what I wanted for that track. So it gets a little bit like that. So I tend not to seek critique for mixing. I mean, I do normally. It's, how do I put it? When I do send it off to the handful of people I trust with it, they might critique a little bit of mixing, and if a few people say the same thing, which does happen, then I'll be like, well, maybe I should adjust that slightly, but not too much, because I still want to retain what I was going for, you know. So there's that. But I love mixing. I actually really enjoy mixing. I have fun with it. I have fun experimenting with it, because I've been a live musician for a long time. When I'm mixing, I just picture where the musicians would be in the room.
Do you use a
And I do
spectrum
that
when
when
you're
I'm
mixing, or just by ear?
I mainly use by ear. I mainly use by ear, you know, and it seems to work. And I'm getting better and better at it. The real telling sign was when I sent off my latest EP, and it came back, you know, mastered. It was only slightly different.
Very similar.
Very
yeah.
slightly different. But the first EP I released last year, which I didn't really mix properly because I kind of just rushed it. It was kind of like, well, I'll put it out there and see if anyone likes it. That was my attitude when I released my first EP last year, and people did. And I was like, oh, well, it's out there now.
Yeah,
But,
there you go. It's out in the world. You can't George Lucas.
I did master it, but I didn't mix it well, and so the volumes are much quieter. The sound isn't as broad and bright, you know, even though it was mixed by people who are good at it. Just because my mix wasn't great, so I made a point to mix well this time. And the difference between mine, when I turned the volume up versus, you know, their mastered version when they put the volumes up, was very similar, which obviously made me happy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think the last question that we want to ask you is, if you could choose one game franchise to add music to, what would that franchise be?
Wow. Well, I'd be okay. I think it would either be. I know I'm predictable here. It would probably be a Streets of Rage or a Sonic or a new Sonic game.
We've heard you live. That's not. We thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, but no, I'll say the true. I won't beat around the bush. Probably a Streets of Rage game. If they made an official Streets of Rage for and stuff like that, you know, that's something I'd love to get on board. And also another Sonic game, Sonic Mania 2 or whatever. I'd be excited about that, because I like mixing kind of funk and jazz with electronic music as well anyway. So I think it would be a good fit, you know? I think I'd have fun with that.
I don't want to just cut you off just yet, because we had a conversation there during the week that you are starting up your own business, and you said you wanted to kind of leave that towards the end of the interview. So do you want to explain exactly what your new venture is and how you're going to get it off the ground?
Yeah, sure. It's quite simple, really. I used to do a lot of composition, radio jingles, soundtrack, quite a bit of backing tracks, you know, and session work, all sorts of things like that. But I took a break from it, and I'm going back to it. But obviously, so it's not limited to 8-bit music, although I get excited about working on video games and stuff like that. But it's just a business. I'm going under my own name. It's not going to be really fancy in that way. It's just the plan is good quality work, and hopefully, you know, I'd get recommendations then and so forth. But I'm just putting it out there as my name, Anton Cullen, you know. And
nice.
Of course, as Ansonix, I'll push it a little bit regarding the game development side. But that's it. I'm just starting I'm just going back to it. And as I said, thankfully I already have some games to work on over the coming months and projects to work on over the coming weeks and months, but definitely if anyone's interested, give me a shout. I'll send you some demos. I'll send you some examples of what I can do. But it varies from classical to blues to gospel to rock to electronic music.
That's awesome, Anton. Thanks a million for sharing that, and thanks a million for the interview. It was very insightful. But we're going to do something just a little bit fun now. We're going to have our topic of the show, and what we're going to do is we were going to say name 3, but we're going to say name 1 video game soundtrack that just blew you away. And we'll start with Una.
Why did you have to come to me first?
Ladies first, Una.
Choose one. Okay, well, I obviously chose 3 amazing ones, but I'm going to talk about one, and that is Nier Automata, which is right here on vinyl.
Nice.
2017 it came out. It was the composer is Keiichi Okabe, who did Nier and Drakengard 3, and the vocalists we have are Emmy Evans and Janique Nicole. So this soundtrack actually won several awards, and it won the best music at the Game Awards in 2017. And what I really just love about it is that there are two sides to the soundtrack. One, you have a side that's mysterious and delicate and emotional, and then the other side is just so deliciously mechanical, triumphant, and absolutely brutal. It's absolutely phenomenal as soundtracks go. So you have a much heavier side, which is like a staccato-esque approach to music. That's when you're like heavily invested in battle and stuff. And if you want, you should check out a song called Birth of a Wish for that, or also Grandma Destruction, just saying. And then on the flip side with the vocals, you have incredibly just haunting pieces, and they're so moving throughout the whole game. What I really love about it more than anything is that it's one of those games that lets you think about the music. You have time in the game to actually just immerse yourself, unlike a certain other game who does not shut up, which is MGS5. It's just it's so irritating. There's just noise all the time, whereas this actually lets you sit back and embrace it and just soak it all in, and that's why I think it's amazing.
Nice. Jack, we'll throw it to you next.
Oh geez, so the 3 I'm probably going to still stick with Final Fantasy X. Just from the very opening of that game with Other Worlds.
Brilliant.
Just
it's fantastic
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
Destroying the city, and then Other World playing in the background. It was amazing back when I was 12 years old playing it for the first time. And then you get to Besaid Beach, and the music completely does a 180 on it. Just goes from kind of metal to just kind of easy kind of thing in tune to listen to. But then you also get later on into the game, and it becomes a bit more classical and early in sense. Like you've got the Hymn of the Faith. That is easily the greatest song, the second greatest song in that game. The greatest song in that game has to be To Xanarkand. No matter, you mightn't even have played Final Fantasy X, but you will know that song to hear it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Final Fantasy X is, I think the soundtrack is one of the best aspects of that game. Seamus, what have you chosen for your favorite?
I'm going to take it back even further. I'm going to be that guy who just picks one that everyone knows all the songs from.
Okay.
Street Fighter 2.
Nice.
Street Fighter 2 has the best soundtrack of any game ever. Everyone knows what Guile's theme is. Everyone knows all the stage themes. It's just so good. It's banger after banger, no matter where you are in the game.
Banger after banger. Nice. And Anton, what is your favorite soundtrack in a video game of all time? If we're going to get, I think we can guess by now. What is your second favorite soundtrack?
Here's the thing. Oh, you're killing me with only one choice. I was struggling to even just put it down to 5, let alone 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna say what you're expecting me to say. I'm gonna say Streets of Rage 2. But just because it's so personally
nice.
It's so personally attached. When I grew up, I was saying, how the heck is this music coming out of that console? It just blew me away because it had really strong, heavy kicks, sounded great through the sound system. I was saying, how are they doing this? through this technology. So me and my brother would stick it on the hi-fi system and just blare it and dance to it, you know. So we were blown away by it. Here's another quick one. Final Fantasy VI also has a great soundtrack.
It
Six is
does.
awesome.
It does.
Really
Yeah,
does.
6 is good.
Yeah.
I want to throw an honorable mention in the mix before we get Ronan's, because I have a feeling what his might be actually.
Go for it.
It's just because I know it's Sonic's probably like, do you know the Starlight Zone from Sonic, the very first one?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the best song in a video game ever. And it's not like heavy, it's not like that. It's really melodic, and every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh, I love that game.
Makes you happy. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
had
nice track.
obviously 3, but we're kind of running short on time. And the 3 I had were ones that just spoke to me and made the game better than it would have been without them. And the one I'm going to pick is the one that I think needs the soundtrack, and that's Austin Wintory's composition on The Journey. It's just that the whole game from start to finish, the themes that are pushed through the game, and the fact that the whole soundtrack is done like a journey, and it feels like there's a moment at the very end of that game where you're climbing up this kind of sand-filled mountain, and it's just the music starts to swell, the emotion that goes through you because of that music. I mean, without the music in that game, I don't think it's the masterpiece that everyone lets on it is. I think the music really pushes Journey to a point where it is known as a masterpiece. I'd love to see or hear more of his stuff. I think he's able to make a soundtrack that blends so beautifully in with the game. And we can all say, you know, songs that we like and songs that hit home, but to have a soundtrack that blends well with the game and makes the game better than it would be without, I think that's where the magic is. So for me, it's Journey.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's our favorite soundtrack in a video game ever. I would like to go around the table once more. We do a quick round the table. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do
Una,
it.
Yeah.
give me your second.
Okay. Right,
Well,
my
we're on
second
a
one.
roll.
Right, we're on a roll. My second one, my friends, is Final Fantasy
I
IX.
love the way you have vinyl of everything.
That's pretty cool, actually.
It is, yeah.
Oh my god! Side note: these vinyls cost a lot. Oh, jeez, I don't even.
So
want
do
to tell
you
how
don't
much they
take them
cost
out
me.
of the packaging, no?
These are birthday presents, aren't they?
Oh, stop! Like, I'll talk to you afterwards about it. But why it's the best Final Fantasy soundtrack?
It's not.
It's
No,
not.
listen to
Oh.
this.
It's subjective.
This is the last exclusive Final Fantasy score that Nobuo Uematsu did on his own. That's
yeah.
really important. It's also, and he said this multiple times, it's his favorite work and also the one that he's most proud of. So, you know, you already have that on the backboard, but like it has beautiful medieval music. It takes hints from the older games. It changes it to a fantasy feel, which he didn't have in the previous 2, 8 and 7, which was more realistic feel, which I think Fana's going to talk about something wrong. But also it just does themes so well, and it is magical. He spent a year composing 160 pieces for Final Fantasy IX. 140 of them actually ended up in the game. The soundtrack is 5 hours long. It is a Final Fantasy epic offering, and it is magnificent.
Let's go, Jack. Quickly, what's your next one?
I'm going to do something similar to you and go for an indie game, and that's going to be Shovel Knight. The game would not have been anywhere near as good without the soundtrack, because it starts off getting you pumped up for a journey, but then when it swaps to the areas where you need to kind of slow down a small bit, the music slows down a bit and kind of goes kind of calm and makes you feel a bit more important. That this journey's more important than what it first made itself out to be.
Nice. Seamus?
I don't know about a game. First of all, that's not the best Final Fantasy soundtrack. It's 7, just because it has One Wing Angel. One Wing Angel is the best song to have happen in any Final Fantasy game.
Again, subjective.
6 is the best.
10.
I'll fight you for it.
I kind of like, do you know the Soul Calibur games where like they have these epic fight scenes and it feels epic, the music behind it, and while you're swinging swords and they're making noises, like it's like they add to the music that's going on in the background as well. I kind of like that in beat 'em ups and stuff when you're actually fighting and stuff, and it kind of adds to that atmosphere that the music's building behind it.
rush.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
So probably something like Soul Calibur or something like that.
Sweet. Anton?
Okay, I'm going to say...
Streets of Rage 3?
No, I'm not
Streets of Rage 1.
Look, I'm going to group them together. Streets of Rage 1, I was also blown away with, and then Streets of Rage 2 improved. But that's not what I'm going to say. I know I snuck in Final Fantasy, but I'm going to cheat and say something else.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to say Castlevania, and the one I'm going to choose
nice.
is the one that I just grew up with. It's the one I got to know the best, and it's probably one of the more overlooked ones. But it's Bloodlines on the Sega
nice.
Mega Drive.
Love it.
I love that soundtrack. Yeah.
My last one is, because I like fantasy settings so much and the Lord of the Rings, I'm a huge fan of that, and the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings. I think Skyrim does a great job with its musical score as well. I had Streets of Whiterun play at my wedding while guests were walking out, and it went down so well. And yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. There's just so many tracks that when you walk into an area, the track starts playing, and especially with Streets of Whiterun, it starts so slowly, and Whiterun is such a beautifully imagined place as well. And yeah, it's Skyrim for me. So without further ado, because we are running a little bit late, we've got 10 minutes for community. Kevin is in. What's happening, Kev?
Not too bad, guys. Chat's happened tonight.
Before you get to community, Kevin, what's your favorite soundtrack?
We don't have
to
time
a video game soundtrack, do I? Because I can't honestly think of a video game soundtrack, but soundtrack in general, I think album in general has to be the Daft Punk soundtrack they did for Tron
Legacy. Yes.
Legacy? Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
That deserved the
nice,
Oscar a couple of years ago. Amazing.
Sweet.
But we had Bridget in the chat. She said Oxenfree is amazing. I had to look at it. I had to stop looking at it because I was missing stuff, but I hadn't heard of it before. But I'm going to get into that. That looks awesome.
So good.
But there was lots of love for loads of soundtracks. There was Colin Hickey with Metal Gear Solid 5. So was Ray talking about Metal Gear Solid 5.
Una trashed it.
Exactly. They're going to hate you now.
Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy. And what? No love for Doom from anybody on the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's Doom is awesome.
Pain Train Gaming. And where are we now? Oh yeah, this is one for our guest here. With the likes of Gustavo Santoalalo. I said that.
Sounds like a good guy.
He did the music for The Last of Us.
Okay.
And music for that game is so important to the atmosphere of the game.
Okay, yeah.
With the weird kind of sitar sound. I don't even think it's a sitar. But he said, do you think that video game music is becoming more and more important, and it'll become more as important as movie soundtracks is to the feel of a game?
Okay, I would argue that it always has been, because think of any game that you love today or 10, 15 years ago and take the music out of it, and what happens, There's no atmosphere without the sound and the music. So I would argue that it's always been important. I just think that maybe today we've gotten better at integrating it into the experience depending on what's happening on screen. So I think there's improvements, but I'd argue that it's always been really important. Because all the great games I can think of, the soundtracks are so memorable as well. And I just can't imagine those games without it. So I think it's improving, but I think it's always been important.
That question was from Colin Hickey. I forgot to say that. Our good friend Colin.
Colin. Cool.
Ray wants to know, our good friend Ray wants to know that his favorite song from any game is Sins of the Father from Metal Gear Solid 5. Is there any piece that stands out to you, that off the top of your head?
Oh, like an individual track?
Yeah.
An individual track? Yeah, and this is going to be really unfamiliar to a lot of people. Back when I had the Mega CD, I had the Terminator, and it had a rock soundtrack, and the rock track from stage 2 on that was absolutely incredible. It was just a rock epic, and it was a real band playing because obviously they had the CDs, and it just blew me away. I don't know the name of it offhand, but it just absolutely blew me away. Go on YouTube and search for the Terminator, the Mega CD version, not the Mega Drive or Genesis version, and some of the music in that was incredible. But stage 2, it just has this riff that's like, because I grew up listening to a lot of rock music,
And we had one more just from our friends at All Cast Irish Gamers. And which one of your songs or piece of music was the hardest to remix or create?
Oh yeah, okay. The hardest one. Oh yeah. I know this. The hardest one was a track from my current EP, which is called Ready for Battle. The track is called Battle Zone. I had a really, really hard time finishing that. We talked about that earlier on, but it's because it had classical elements, it had dubstep elements, and it had drum and bass elements all mixed together. And I had this idea in my head, but making it all blend and transition well took forever. I think it was the track I worked on up to the last hour before sending off for mastering,
Oh.
So Battleground from my EP. I'm proud of the track. It seems to, even though it wasn't one of my singles, it seems to be a track that a lot of people like from the EP. So I'm glad I put the work in it and included it in the EP in the end. It's like relief and
oh yeah, as Ian was saying, asking earlier on, when do you consider it finished? It's never. You're never going to be.
Well,
it's kind of. It's
an hour before it went to the engineer, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of the curse of the artist. You look back, you see how far you've come.
Yeah.
But a lot of artists look back and they hate everything they've done before. But it's kind of a curse, and I don't see that. I think that like it's a process. You're always learning. You're always changing. It doesn't go from bad to good. It just changes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's it. Absolutely.
That's all in community, Kev, yeah?
It is. There's just loads of love in the chat for music, and everyone's saying hello. And
thanks a million for coming on and doing the community section once again.
No
so I think we'll do our shout outs, plugs, and all that kind of stuff and get out of here. Una Ming, ladies first, if you want to shout out.
Yes, and to clarify, I do like the MGS5. Not the gameplay, but that's another story. But you can find me over on... No. Harry Gregson Williams is a fantastic composer. You can find me over on Twitch. My name is Unitex over there, YUNITEX, and that's where I'm hanging out playing a lot of RPGs at the moment.
Nice. Kev?
You can find me at MartufTK on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube.
Seamus?
For me, it's just Maroxide on Twitter and Twitch.
Platinum Jack?
You can find me as the Platinum Jack on Twitch and Waxticles on Twitter.
And Anton, give us your shout outs, what you've been working on, and what song we will hear at the end of the show on MP3.
Sure, yeah. Well, right now I have my EP Ready for Battle out. Also, you can find me on pretty much every social media. Ansonix Music. Just on all of them: Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Twitter, Facebook. But and the track, sure, we'll go with Battleground.
Nice. So I've been your host, Ronan Fox. You can get me on Twitter at the Alpha Fox. Also on Steam, you can get me there playing some indie games mostly. But I just want to turn to Anton and thank you for coming on the show and just being a joy to get to know the music industry and exactly what you're doing. I think you're doing something that's unique and something that it connects to all of us as fans. So I want for you to keep doing what you're doing. I had your music on earlier on, and my son was blown away by the stuff that you've been making. So just keep going, and we're here to support you in any way you can. So this has been Ronan Fox from the Republic of Gaming podcast, episode 11, and we are out.